Welcome in to Inside Carolina's This Week UNC Baseball head coach Scott Forbes. Johnny T-shirt and congruity. Did you see it?
Saw it. I like it. Got some baseball in there.
And I'm going to keep working. I'm going to get it filled up with all baseball. By the time when the weather gets warm, it'll be all baseball. Speaking of which, Coach Forbes, appreciate you taking the time today. Obviously, a cold weekend. Pretty incredible you guys were able to get 27 innings in against Texas Tech. But when you've had a chance to sort of marinate on it and see, what we did right, what we did wrong in the meetings that you've had, anything different than you saw with your eyes once those games were over this past weekend?
Honestly, not really. I felt like we did a good job of not beating ourselves. We made 2 errors, I think, on the weekend. When they did make a mistake, we capitalized on that mistake. We pitched it extremely well. We played fundamental baseball, manufactured some runs. There's always things that you can do better, we can do better. We're going to work on those today at practice. But with the weather, 18 innings opening day, finding a way to get the other 9 innings in a drizzle on Saturday, and for our guys to be able to perform like they did in those conditions, obviously was impressive to us as a coaching staff and a credit to our players. But no, after decompressing, just looking back on it, like, hey, we didn't drive the ball as much as I would have liked for us to, but I think a lot of that had to do with the arms that they threw out there as well, and the arms should be ahead of the hitters early.
Yeah, speaking of your arms, let's start with Jason DeCaro. I asked you about it over the weekend, obviously, but if he's going to come out, not one game, we know that it's one game in the 2025 season, but to get a start like that day one against a good quality baseball team, I don't know if you can ask for much more. Is there something I'm missing that you could ask for more from DeCaro there?
No, honestly, I felt like his off speed wasn't where it can be. That would be the only thing. But I mean, good night, to have it scripted out where you go DeCaro, Knapp, and Matthias, that's the perfect scenario. Me and Coach Gaines, last week are sitting in here on Thursday talking about the perfect scenario in game 1. Well, DeCaro allowed that to happen. And then Jake came in and did the same thing. But it all started with DeCaro. He set the tone for the whole weekend, in my opinion, and that's why he's our Friday starter.
Yeah, he was impressive and didn't back down from anybody and just showed – I think he looked better, significantly better than he did last year, and that's credit to you guys and to him. You mentioned Jake Knapp, and we talk a lot about pitching, but Jake was that guy that sat beside y'all last year and watched. Were you surprised that he was able to come out and do what he did? Were you surprised at his velo that quickly? I mean, he jumped out of the gate going 95.
No.
He didn't show any nervousness that with is my arm going to hold up?
I agree with that. And he did show those same flashes in the preseason, which is why we felt so comfortable pitching him in that big of a situation. Obviously, opening day, tight game, following a really good outing by DeCaro. But his control combined with his velocity has been so impressive to me in the preseason. So I wasn't surprised to see it. It was more of an excitement thing for all of us, just the fact that he's ready, that he gets to be back out there. We had kind of scheduled him or had him ready to start one of these 3 games. But then with the weather being like it was, it's like, okay, well, why would we do that when we want to try to win both games on Friday, and we'll figure out Saturday when Saturday gets here. So it was exciting to see him like that. And, he basically had a start because he started an inning and he got to throw a good amount of pitches.
Yeah, let's do this. Look at here. Grace Nugent joins us. Grace, I asked about DeCaro and Knapp, so I'll let you get in on your list of questions here for Coach Forbes. Oh, and she starts out muted.
You're muted.
We've got it. Whew.
There you go.
It's been a morning already. Hi, Coach. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning.
Congrats on your opening weekend sweep. Going with the pitching angle, talking about kind of game planning, how do you decide for an opening series, especially with so many new freshmen, who goes where, what their game plan is, what the pitch counts would be, which kind of situations you're going to put them in? What kind of planning goes into that between you, Coach Gaines, whoever's doing your scouting?
Yeah, Coach Gaines and Coach Howell, obviously, they work on this plan way back. Really, we're targeting February 14th all the way back in August, believe it or not. Like, okay, that's the program and the plan. And then you're getting your guys to buy into the everyday task of accomplishing that task today, not looking too far ahead. And if you do these things every day, the next day be a little bit better, and the next day be a little bit better, you'll be where you want to be. Just like Coach Belichick said in his Carolina Insider interview, that's the same belief system we have here. But then as you start getting closer, you have a group of guys that you want to build their pitch counts up because they're in the mix to potentially be starters. And we did that in the preseason. We had a group. The competition was so fierce that we had a higher number of guys that we got their pitch counts up, knowing that some of them were going to be working out of the bullpen. But we felt like that still prepared them for early in the season when the pitch counts aren't as high. So we knew, obviously, DeCaro was going to be capped at a certain amount. And because of that, the other guys having Knapp's pitch count being built up, he could piggyback him. McDuffie's pitch count being built up, he could go after Houck. Lynch's pitch count being built up. So we had a group, Percival included, and Pageant. And then we had some other guys we really worked hard as relievers, anywhere between 1 to 3 inning stints. Matty Mathias, you saw Seagraves. So there's a plan for every single one of them. But you rather start at a high-end pitch count to get them ready for the season and then them have to adjust to the bullpen role. We try to prepare them for the bullpen role in scrimmages, and we work on making them get ready in the bullpen, not using the outfield. So we do all that preparation, but until you've actually come out of the bullpen, you haven't come out of the bullpen. So that was good to see with a guy like Folger, Boaz, and a lot of these high school kids were their team's best starters. And they all came pitched out of the bullpen this weekend, which was really a really good sign for us, and especially with guys understanding how important buying into your role is for our team's success.
Yeah, you didn't start any of your older transfer pitchers, and we didn't see Cam Paget make an appearance. And you had those 3 freshmen in Lynch, McDuffie, and Seagraves. So I think the general consensus is they really wowed. They brought it in their Carolina debut. So how do you work in those older guys and those Cam Pagets that are going to have an impact on the season early, so you can start building up their pitch counts and their in-game innings before you get to ACC play?
Yeah, your goal is, at the end of the day, well, let me go back. My job is to put the best pitcher in the game and the best hitter to win the game. And if you're not in that mix right out of the gate, you got to try to get in that mix, because still against Kansas State, for us, it's not about getting guys work. It's about beating Kansas State. And we'll start there. But obviously you want to create depth. You want to get guys at bats when you can. But like we talk about all the time, this is big boy country. This is the highest level of baseball there is. And, the team first mentality of winning the game is just going to always be first. But those guys are good. They can help us. We're going to try to get them in. A guy like Paget, obviously, he's one of our better guys. It just didn't work out where he did get in there, so he should get in there tomorrow against Kansas State. But bullpens, live BP, you're still working your tail off to have these guys prepared. So when they do get their opportunity, they're ready, and then they have to be ready. If they're crying a river because they haven't pitched for 2 weeks or haven't played for 2 weeks, their chances of success aren't very good. But if they're staying ready, they're working, they're staying engaged, their chances of success are much better.
You kind of went there, and I was going on the position angle. Like, obviously, when Jackson Vanderbrake gets his peel granted, he comes back, that locks down a position and takes away a position from a younger guy. How do you blend in getting younger guys like a Perry Hargett or anybody else on that roster? How do you balance that versus trying to win? Because it matters to win all these games early, but there's some kind of line you have to have versus I got to play these guys. If we sacrifice a win or two, is that worth it? Where is that for you?
Never going to sacrifice a win for me. The guys decide who plays, in my opinion. I believe that as a player. I remember sitting down with Coach Fox, and he told me when I was at North Carolina Wesleyan, you have to make me play you. And then I had to figure out, okay, what was that? Being dependable, winning the job. And even though Jackson came back, yeah, he quote locked down a position. But if Perry would have outplayed Jackson in the preseason at second base, for instance, I would have started Perry. I wasn't going to play Jackson just because he won the NCAA appeal. Jackson earned that start through hard work and being one of our best guys. But I understand what you're asking too is, you have to have depth. Things change throughout the season. I remind the guys that Shea Sprague wasn't even in the picture after the first weekend last year. So we know Perry Hart's going to be a heck of a player for us. And I think just demanding from your players, like, hey, like you are responsible for your attitude and being ready to go. And if we're winning, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
And so, but I do think it's something that we all have to work on. We all have to balance, but I don't believe in sacrificing a game to create depth. Now you might lose a game because you just say, hey, Lynch isn't pitching tomorrow, McDuffie isn't pitching tomorrow, because that's what we need to do, that we need to take care of their arms. But I don't think that's ever going to be I don't think you have to do that.
Yeah, I still remember Max Owens in basketball telling me 20-some years ago, as long as we're winning, I'm not going to fuss. But when they started losing, it got interesting. So I 100% see your point there. When you have a team like Kansas State coming in, obviously midweeks are different. There's some teams that are better than others, but one game, one stud pitcher could shut down a game. Do you approach a big non-conference game like Kansas State any differently than you would a quote unquote lesser team, understanding that any team can beat you on any given day?
You know what Coach Saban would say to that, don't you?
I knew I'd get one.
The opponent in my mind doesn't matter. We matter, how we play, how we're prepared. And that's what I talk to our guys about all the time, because whoever walks down there, if they went to a super regional like Kansas State, or if they didn't, they're coming into what they think is one of the best baseball programs in the country. So they're going to raise their level of play. They see all the accolades on the walls. They know we've been to Omaha. They know we're ranked. So really I focus more on approaching it like, okay, what is the best lineup to beat Kansas State? What is the best lineup and pitchers to beat A&T, whoever it is? And that's the way I'm always going to approach it. I don't believe that at this age. I mean, look, all these guys want to play professional baseball. And college is easy. A college season is cake compared to a pro season. So when you're 18 to 24, which is roughly the age right now, maybe we'll have a 25-year-old in this landscape, you should be fine with playing every single day. You don't need a day off. I know I didn't want a day off because I sat the bench when I first got to North Carolina Western. When I got in there, I sure didn't want to sit the bench again. So we don't prepare any different. If anything, obviously it's nice the coach to know that the players, they're not dumb. They know that Kansas State went to a super regional. But my job as a head coach is try to remind them too that, hey, what we do is most important. Our preparation yesterday was important. The recovery, our lift today is important. Our practice today is important. And that will dictate ultimately how we play. But kids are kids, and you got to keep them focused, and you got to make sure that they're focused on today and not East Carolina, for instance, instead of Kansas State. So I feel like our guys buy into that pretty well, and that's my job to remind them.
In terms of preparation, it's been talked about a little bit, no home runs. I believe Dave Nathan said that was the first time that had happened in a 3-game weekend series since 2018. But at least from my observation, there seemed to be a lot more really well-placed ground and line drives through different gaps. I know Rom Kellis had 2 straight down that third base line. Jackson Vanderbrake had some. Kane had some beautiful pieces of hitting to that center field gap. How has bringing on Scott Jackson and Coach Weirs kind of helped prepare those guys to maybe play more of the station-to-station baseball than relying on those really explosive long balls?
Yeah, they work extremely well together. Coach Weirs is our hitting coach, and he's really, really good. So Coach Jackson's pretty hands-off when it comes to the technicalities of the swing, but they work together hard on approach, being able to know what the situations are like. knowing when to steal, when not try to steal. But with that being said, like, this is a physical team too that has power. And I think at times you have to step back and be like, well, what kind of arms did we face? How quality were these arms? And then you go back and you watch, like, okay, we let them get away with too many mistakes, probably. But we still hit 8 or 9 doubles. We still scored runs. It wasn't like we were singles hitting offense only. We had some deep counts that worked their pitchers' pitch counts up. But we do want to be able to manufacture runs when we're not hitting those doubles or home runs and a pitcher just has it going. How do you manufacture those? A hit by pitch, a long at bat, 12 plus pitches to get a pitch count up, a dirt ball read, trying to bunt for a hit. They make a mistake like they did against Kepley, don't catch a fly ball, get a base hit, steal second, get them over, get them in, those type of things. But I was joking about that, and we've been joking about it because the last thing we want our guys to do is try to start hitting home runs. But when you go back and watch the game, you realize, like, their guys were pretty good. I mean, there wasn't an arm that rolled out there that I wouldn't recruit. That's the way I look at it. Like, okay, what quality arms are we facing? And their lowest velocity guy had their best off-speed pitch in the changeup. But other than that, I mean, every pitcher they threw out there was 92, 95 with a good off-speed pitch, and they landed off-speed pitches and hitters' counts. And that's what I was so pleased about, finding a way to still win from the standpoint of we faced legit arms.
How do you –
was it Perko that had the change up?
Yeah, and we thought he was going to be good. We watched him on video, and we were surprised they didn't start him. They tried to start the freshman, which we've all done, and piggyback with him. But a changeup is kind of like the starter for Long Island. Like, we were like, man, this guy, he may not look that great. It's unorthodox, but he has a changeup, and he can throw that changeup at any time. And when you have that changeup, makes your 89, 90 look like 95. And you saw that, against him. But we still managed to score a run against him, which ended up being a big run, in my opinion.
How do you evaluate after the series the quality of arms that you face and where your hitters kind of missed and how they can work on that going forward in future games?
Yeah, I mean, hitting is difficult, number one. Just realizing, like, I learned, like, it's just not a big deal when a guy's dealing. Everybody gets up in arms like, oh, we haven't had a hit in 2 innings. Well, it's hard to hit. And, reminding the guys to stay steady. They're getting mad anyway. So the last thing they need is me getting mad and, talking about it. We're just stay with it. We'll get a guy on and we'll score a run. But we're just looking more for, did we miss pitches that were mistakes? Because as hitters, you're trying to hit mistakes. If a pitcher is dealing and he's putting the ball exactly where he wants to, it can be a long day for you. But you feel like maybe I'll get a mistake each at bat, and am I ready to hit that mistake? So that's how we evaluate, the pitches throughout a game offensively, is like, hey, did we miss? Were we too big? Those type of things. And not overanalyze. The first weekend, I told our guys, congratulations. You should expect to do this and move on. In a month, it's not going to mean that much. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to come out on the end we came out on, but I've also seen it where later in the year that team ended up being better than us, and we don't want that to be the case.
Talking to head coach Scott Forbes here on This Week UNC Baseball on Inside Carolina. Coach Forbes, a couple more questions for you, if you will be so inclined to answer. The pitching rotation, obviously we talked about DeCaro first. How came out there second game for you, and then you go from there. When you're deciding rotations, do you try to avoid like guys back to back? For instance, DeCaro and Houck, both tall, lanky, powerful pitchers. And then last year you brought in Sprague to have the left-hander. Last year you had Folger in there as a lefty. I know the lineup, the batting order is you like a left, right if it works out. But does it work that way when you're deciding?
I like it if it works out. I play 7 Honeycutt, so right-handed if we had them.
Yeah.
Granted. Yeah, Tommy, you do like different looks, but you also just want to pitch your best pitchers. And, again, if we had I'm okay with DeCaro. I mean, right? Like Miller,
Like
Miller,
softball.
Miller, White. I mean, if you got Garrett Cole, if the Yankees have Garrett Cole going 4 days, they're probably going to be pretty good. So the looks more out of the bullpen, maybe, but more just the quality of the pitcher first, in my opinion. Because a starter, you're hoping has enough weapons and has the ability to go at least 2 times through the order, right? And that's what separates those starters over time. And then if they can get to that 3rd time, even better. So the looks, I would say no. I mean, I don't. They are big and tall, but like if you dig deep on their numbers and their arm slots and their analytics and their pitchability and their best weapons, they're a lot different. They're just similar in size. But I do like different looks, but I only like those different looks if the quality is high.
Last one for me, the 3 freshman pitchers, Seagraves, McDuffie, and Lynch, were impressive. Did they impress you, or did you expect to see what they were able to do? Specifically, Ryan Lynch, I thought, went a little longer than we expected him to go and looked really good doing it. Any impressions they made on Scott Forbes?
I mean, they even made a better impression, honestly, because, you go by what you've seen in the preseason with freshmen in the fall. I had been extremely impressed with all 3 of them, which is why we put them in that situation. And when you earn something, you earn it, and they earn that opportunity, but you don't truly know. I pretty much knew with DeCaro, right? Like I didn't know he was going to go 5 innings, but I know what DeCaro has done in 90 innings the year before, and I've seen his development this preseason. But with these guys, not knowing how they're going to control their emotions, are they going to be too amped up? Are they going to be to stay in the zone because it's their first college outing at the University of North Carolina against a legit team? They impressed me, and I think I'm hard to be impressed the older I get. I thought Cam came in extremely aggressive in a big situation, and they all came in tight games. I used to always remember as a pitching coach, like it's a lot easier to have, quote, duty where, you're up by 10 runs or that you're getting beat really bad. Nothing's like, it's not as tight and everybody's not locked in as much, probably. But all those guys, every pitch they threw were tight games, big situations. So they really impressed me. And we had them, a credit to Coach Gaines and Coach Howe, they had them prepared to do that. We had Lynch prepared to go long. Lynch and McDuffie were in the mix to be one of our weekend starters. So we built them up, and we felt like this first weekend it was better to utilize them out of the pen. And Cam, we just felt really good at the time. Seagraves, we felt like he could be a dynamic setup/closure guy. Like Cam, if you look at him, he's already touching 95, but I mean, the dude is a string bean and he's gained weight. So there's no telling how hard he's going to end up throwing. I think over time he could also be a starter, but how they're going to do it in a real game, you don't know. So I was extremely impressed, which is why I sent Lynch back out there in a safe situation. I thought, okay, he's in complete control. And if they get a base runner, we'll go ahead and go to Maddie. And they almost didn't get one. The ball Vandy dove for it and went off his glove. But I thought those 3 guys would impress me the most was I felt like they were in control of themselves and they weren't overwhelmed. Heartbeat was pretty slow. You could tell they were amped up when they came in. They didn't balk. They stayed with their routines. And, Seagraves, for instance, if you break down he literally threw balls on purpose to Bravo, didn't make a mistake because he wasn't going to beat us, and then struck out the guy behind him. That's not easy to do. That's easier for a Jake Knapp, a DeCaro, a Boaz, because they've done it. So that was impressive. And, and now they go back to that group where I told them, hey, man, it's over now. You gotta do it again. So, but it was exciting, that's for sure.
You talk about low heartbeats, and especially talking about these 3 freshmen. They were probably, the best pitchers in their high school, some of the best in the state. How do you kind of train them or help them realize the big situations like you put Cam in, how to keep your heart rate low, how to be in command, how to just kind of stay within yourself to deliver in those situations?
We work on that hard. Having a routine, and sticking with it. We do work with Jenny Shannon some, our sports psychologist. But, great players have routine at every level. Football is a little bit different because it's such a violent sport. Your routine can be a little bit less, but you're looking in basketball, you're looking at the elite shooters, you look at all that. They have routines and they stick with those routines. And they take it even further. They have a routine where something negative happens where they can forget it. So we have a routine that consists of your basic routine when everything's going well, a release, what do you do when things aren't going well? An umpire makes a bad call. How do you release it and get back into your routine? And then a refocus, like, okay, I got to refocus back. I just hit that guy in an 0-2 count. I've got to move on. I can't be focused on that. How do I do it? Is it one swipe of the rubber? Just things that you learn that really do help. Same thing with a hitter, because your heart rate is going to go up naturally because you're excited. I mean, mine goes up coaching third base in that inning against LSU. And then how do you control it where you can still make good decisions through breathing patterns and positive thinking? That stuff is real, though. And so we implement that with our team. Body language is so important, too, because the team feeds off of it. Learning how to slow down instead of speed up. So there's a lot that you work on. And I think baseball probably more than any other sport because it is a very mental game.
How have you seen the freshmen, both at the plate and on the mound, kind of adapt to those mindsets?
And so another credit to our coaches, Coach Jackson and Coach Worsbicky with our position players, Coach Howell and Coach Gaines, and then me as the head coach, really making a part of what we do in practice. BP, for instance. Today we're going to take BP after we're done with our fundamental defense, but you should have a BP routine. You're not just in there swinging, swing. Take your time, get your breath off, get a swing. So quality over quantity. Same thing in the bullpen. Being sticklers of, hey, you're not sticking with your routine. You're just going through it right here, but you want to create that right habit. And then something I don't think enough teams work on that we've really started to focus on is our defensive routine. You're set up in the outfield because it's hard to sometimes pay attention in the outfield because you're just out there. But, between every pitch, what do you do? At shortstop, what do you do? At second, third, behind the plate. So it's just part of what we work on.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I think not a lot of teams emphasize. And obviously, especially defensively, it showed you one error. I believe it's one error this weekend. And last opening weekend, you guys had 7-5 in that final game. I got a fun one for you, and then I'm out. I've done a few stories on some of your players, and I always wrap with asking them what they would be doing if they didn't play baseball. Luke Stevenson said he would like to go on Shark Week. Tyson said he would be a food critic. Gotten some fun answers. So I'm going to ask you the same thing. Coach Jackson said that he would be cutting grass on a golf course and then
100% he would be.
So I'm asking you the same thing. If you weren't a baseball coach, what would you be doing?
If I was not a baseball coach, I would either be living in Sanford in construction or building, because that's what I grew up doing, or I've always thought how neat it would be to be on the deadliest catch. Like just on a boat for like a year. Now, I couldn't have a family and do that. So that would have to say that I didn't – my whole life would have to be totally different. But that's just a show that I've always enjoyed. I don't know if I can make it with the waves and stuff, but I think it would be interesting.
You were saying it was cold this weekend. Do you see those dudes with ice in their beards?
That's true. I don't know, man. Maybe you're right. I would probably stick to the just being outside. So, the construction piece of that would be fun to try to figure out, I think.
Can't beat it. That's head coach Scott Forbes. They will be outside Tuesday at 4:00 against Kansas State. I thought the crowds were pretty good given the weather this weekend. Kansas State coming in. Should be a fun time in the Bosch, getting in ahead of the snow that is supposed to come. We'll see what happens.
How about the week we have ahead? Kansas State and 3 against the Pirates. Y'all want the pitching, or you want me to wait and release it on the internet?
If you'll give it, pitching. By all means.
We're going to start
Boaz. The pitching.
We're going to start Boaz tomorrow on a pitch count. But you'll see a lot of guys against Kansas State. And we met this morning. We're going to go DeCaro Friday, Knapp Saturday, Halk Sunday.
Nice.
That's
So
the plan.
Knapp is going to assume the Saturday role for the moment.
Yep. Yes, sir. He's ready to go.
Good deal. That'll be.
We had planned on starting him game 2 or 3 originally, but because of the prep, getting him ready, now he's really ready to go on that Saturday role, and he'll be ready to go 80 pitches. So I'm excited for him. I mean, he deserves it. Knock on wood, he reminds me a lot of like an Adam Warren, that guy that is going to throw strikes that the other team's going to have to beat, and he's got that veteran performance, behind him, and it's a good feeling to have a guy like that. And then Houck too, same thing. So, but we got a lot of other guys pushing them, but we like them in the bullpen for right now.
Yeah, you've got a lot of iron sharpening iron type thing going on that pitching staff especially, so it'll be fun to watch. Coach Forbes, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate you doing this again for 2025. It's going to be a fun year, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to a great week, and y'all have a great week yourselves, and don't let it snow on Wednesday. We don't need it.
No, do not like snow. Everybody stay safe. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity for sponsoring it. Thanks, Grace.
Thank y'all.